Hi, everyone. I'm Gabby from Bolt Inside. I just wanted to start today by looking at a few pieces of media from the last few years. This may be familiar to you. The first one is actually an episode of a show called Black Mirror, where people entrust AI to tell them how long their relationship is going to last. A day, a year, a lifetime. The second one is a story about a man that actually falls in love with his AI assistant. And when those pieces of media were released just a few years ago, I think we all thought, this is a little bit crazy. These types of things will never happen. But actually, when we look today at how people are using AI, the number one case is actually for companionship, for finding purpose. Whereas we've been talking so long about automation, about getting results faster, a crazy speed of light, the reality is that today people want to connect. People are lonelier than ever, and AI creates a safe space. People are now having relationships with AI, literally AI boyfriends trying to get married to AI. They also use AI to solve issues they have with their partners, or even for therapy. But what does that really mean when it comes to research? Why am I talking about this today? The fact that people can speak to AI in a way that it's so vulnerable, without any bias, judgment, really means that when it comes to AI moderation, people can talk freely about topics that maybe are full of stigma, judgment, when it comes to talking to a real moderator or a real person. So this is really the power of AI moderation when it comes to exploring sensitive topics, emotional topics. And today, we really want to talk about a topic that I think is a great example of something emotional, sensitive, stigmatized, and maybe even taboo for many people. The topic of today will be GLP-1. I think maybe this is top of mind for a lot of you, and that's why you're here. But it's a topic that people are still not so open about, and that's why we wanted to explore it with our study today. Before we get into the findings led by Yele, I want to talk to you a little bit about Bolt. What do we do and who we are? I'm not going to bore you with a 10-minute presentation of our capabilities here, but what I wanted to highlight is that our goal here at Bolt is really to bring together amazing technology built by researchers that know research. I myself used to be a client of Bolt for a few years before I joined, but also mixing that expertise, that ability to build insights that are actually actionable for our clients with amazing technology, often powered by AI. We have solutions on AI-moderated qual, we have conversational quant, UX testing, social listening, and we bring all of that together into one platform. If you want to know more, come find us after the chat. But what did we do for this specific study? Well, we wanted to explore how people, when they are taking GLP-1s or have lapsed out of GLP-1, how they are feeling, how their experience has been, not just from a food and beverage perspective, but actually how it has changed their identity, who they are, barriers, drivers, all of that, and we'll share with you all the details. We did this research in 4 different markets, so USA, Netherlands, Hungary, and the UK, and we had 160 participants across lapsed users and current users. And now let's hear a little bit more from Jelle on the results.
Yes, GLP-1, and why does it matter to Friesland Campina? Well, you might say a 3-letter abbreviation that is super typical for a corporate to really go after that. But of course, there's more to this story. I think GLP-1 is a topic that is trending really fast and it's building a lot of momentum. Within Friesland, we know a lot about it through secondary sources, but we felt we needed to put a little bit more substance to it. Like really understanding and putting the consumer or people at the heart and center of the discussion. So therefore, it's really good to get a little bit of an understanding as to how do people get to know about this? Why are they stepping into this? How does it feel? And also, what are their hopes and fears going into the future, having been on the drug for some time? And that's what we will be looking at today. But first, important, especially with 3-word acronyms, we need to be clear about definitions. And so, GLP-1, it's basically, that's interesting. Well, now I need to be super clear on the definition. So what it is, it's basically a natural medication, mimics a natural hormone occurring in the body. And it is good for various ways in order to lose weight. It's typically being used for diabetes, but we see now it's being widely used for weight management. And GLP-1 is basically the umbrella term, but you might also know it by the commercial name of Ozempic, Wegovy, Manjaro. So, stepping into the journey, basically. So I want to take you through the consumer journey, how that happens when they're starting on the medication and how does it feel. So, of course, it's about where do you get to know about GLP-1 and what makes you step into this journey. Also, the early transformation and the weight loss. So, of course, we have that as well. But more importantly, perhaps the identity transformation. How does it feel? And the emotional side of things. What does it do with people? And then in the end, looking a little bit towards, okay, what are the future hopes and fears of people that are on GLP-1? Awareness, a little check in the room. Who knows what GLP-1 is and has heard a lot about it and knows a lot about it? Can you please raise your hand? It's quite a lot of people. So there's definitely a huge interest in this. And I think I always compare it to protein because I've been in the dairy business for quite some time, and I think this really became big coming from the sports, where people, trainers in the gym were telling people, hey, if you take protein, you can recover faster, grow your muscles faster. So this was really amplifying this trend. And I think here with GLP-1, what we're seeing is that this is really also getting its traction from social media, like TikTok, where people see actually this kind of medicine and they actually go to their GP or go to their doctor saying like, hey, I've heard about this, can you help me? I want to lose weight. And this is really a very interesting way that people start to get into this journey, basically. So then, of course, knowing is one thing, getting into it is another thing. And I think the sentence where we say hope becomes stronger than hesitation, this is really, I think, super key, because hesitation, there's quite a bit of it. Because you're putting a needle into your body, there's quite a cost associated with it. There are by-effects that are quite serious. And so this is something that people do not go and do overnight. And we also see, okay, when does it then become a real option? It becomes a real option when it feels like a valid answer to a real need that people have. So for example, they have worsening health, or they've been trying to battle weight for a long time and they're just not managing to get it down. This is when they're really making the step into GLP-1. And what we also teased out with Bolt is looking at the country nuances, because there's some differences there. We see, for example, in the Netherlands, the doctor approval is something, or quite a push that makes people get into this journey, whereas in the UK, it's more the social permission. US, it's very cost-driven, so can I afford it, then I'm willing to go for it. And then in Hungary, we see a little bit of a mix. And so people having both, they need the family approval, but also the cost associated with it is a thing. So right, so then they get into it. And of course, the first change, you get into it for the physical change, right? So your body changes, but there's also this emotional change that happens with people. And what really resonated with me when I had the first debrief and the first report, when we went into that, I think Gabi said like, it's the food voice that quiets down in the brain that is super powerful. And this also helps people to lose a little bit of the self-blame. It's not only my problem, it's kind of a biology problem that I needed help with. So the self-blame softens, and I found this super interesting, and you really see the emotional layer to that. And we also asked people in this journey, can you please take a picture of yourself? How do you feel? And I think the pictures, they speak for themselves, right? People really radiate. You can see happiness, etc. So they're really looking amazing. So this identity transformation, yes, it has a physical component, but it also has very much this emotional component, and it shows up in different ways. You have, on the one hand, you have the internal shift, like building your own self-confidence, feeling more like yourself again, but also being kinder to yourself. Less of that self-blame, you're feeling better about yourself, but it's also how you show up in the outside world. And so it's about, are you visible again in public spaces, but also more present in life, relationships, work. You feel more confident actually to take that on again. And that is really interesting. So when you feel like yourself again, it also makes the future more hopeful again, right? So you look to the future with bright eyes. And again here, I like the comparison with protein, where you see that people go for more, like you're trying to build more muscle. Here the key word is basically maintenance, where people really are looking to maintain a certain level of, okay, this is enough, this is how much I want to weigh. So keeping the weight stable, preserving the energy, avoiding dropping back into old patterns and holding on to calmer eating and greater confidence. I think this is something that people really look for. But there's also another side to that story. It's not only positive, I would say. And there's more to this, but what we see is, yes, there's hope and this new tomorrow, basically, but there's also fear. And have people having basically this fear like, hey, if I'm stopping with GLP-1, what does that mean, right? Do I go back to my old weight? But also, you still have the ongoing pressure where people in your social circle will be like, you're using GLP-1, you're hacking your weight, basically. And last but not least, GLP-1 can feel a little bit like a deal with the devil, right? On the one hand, you get this body, but on the other hand, you also get the side effects, and these are very real. So dizziness, nausea, and also people report mental problems, actually. So it's not all rainbow and roses, so to say. And that's also these different nuances. We tease them out a little bit, also talking to the various personas that we based on the research. And Gabi will tell you a bit more on that.
So one of the really nice things about the platform is that actually it's able to identify patterns in the responses of the respondents, the participants, beyond just going to demographics, age, gender, but really understand these personas that come through. For this specific study, we identified 3 global personas. The first one, which we're calling the committed continuers. These are really people that having a great experience with GLP-1, and they plan on continuing this long term. Often these are people that are coming from a diabetes lenses and need this to maintain health overall, not just about weight. Second is the goal-oriented transitioners. I think this is a really interesting one because these are people that really benefited from that identity transformation that Jelle was talking about. And they really see GLP-1 as a tool to help them in the short term so that they can continue in the long term without it and really manage by themselves. And then last, because it's not all beauty and flowers, we also have these unsettled navigators. These are people that are still in the early transformation. The pounds are starting to drop, but they're still questioning whether this is actually feasible. They feel guilty, they are scared, and overall uncertain. And the great thing is you can then activate these personas via chatting with them to bring your insights to life. So what does that really mean in terms of eating? So we'll be focusing today on the impacts of GLP-1 on food and beverage especially, but we know that it goes much further. It goes into beauty, into personal care, and really all areas of their life. But let's talk today about food. So how is GLP-1 really rewriting the way people eat today? Well, the obvious first insight is that people are eating less. This is not a surprise to anyone. You don't have that food noise always in your brain telling you to eat, to crave, to graze. So you're having less occasions, whether that is snacking occasions or even sometimes skipping meals. But what does that really mean? Well, people are planning their meals much more. So whether that is on meal planning or at the supermarket, and not to, again, reinforcing stereotypes, but the Dutch consumers are the ones that are really looking at the supermarket, at the back of pack, what is more nutritional. And that's because actually when you eat less, each bite you put in your body means much more, right? So people are looking for nutrient-dense foods. Of course, protein plays a big role here, but not just. There is also fiber. People want to have complete meals in a very small, easy-to-eat and consume portion. Then we have the heavy-to-fresh change. Because there are, of course, not so great side effects from GLP-1, anything that is too greasy, too sweet, even things you used to love eating, are actually not really that accessible for you anymore. So you're really looking for fresher, lighter, less sweet versions of the favorite foods. And this is, again, where the idea of the local nuances really comes at play, because we did a study in Hungary where a lot of the traditional food is actually very heavy. These are stews, fatty foods, really warm and hearty. And this is where people are really impacted. Last here is on the social part. People still want to go to the restaurant because eating is not just about putting food in your body. It's also about socializing, spending a moment with people you care about. And actually, there is a guilt in going to a restaurant and actually not ordering anything. You know, there is some judgment involved. So people are still trying to go out, but looking for sharing plates, smaller portions, just ordering an appetizer maybe. And the last one for today is the idea of indulgence reframed. Does it mean that people are not looking for treats? That's not true. Just that you have less occasions now and that treats need to look a little bit different. A smaller portion, a less sweet option. And again, no stereotypes, but what came through very strongly is that British people are unhappy about not being able to go to the pub anymore and have fatty food and have those big indulgent desserts. So it looks a bit different everywhere, but we do see patterns at a global level. And we still have a little bit of time for questions. If anyone has any via the app, maybe. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
And we do. We have some really interesting questions. I'll have to shout them out a little bit for you guys. Simple question, I think. Why the choice for these specific countries? Hungary surprises me.
That's a very good question. Well, the choice is very simple, actually. This is the scope of Business Group Europe for Friesland Campina. So I think it makes it super interesting, because what we've seen, and the research also shows us, that these countries, they're very different. So we have UK in scope, Netherlands, Belgium, Hungary, and Greece. And across these countries, yeah, it's wildly different. So we really needed to understand how does it show up in every society right now. So that's what's behind.
It's also really interesting to look at different levels of development in the markets in terms of penetration of GLP-1, maturity. In some countries, it's much difficult to find the lapsed users because people are just starting to get into it now, versus in the UK, for example, it's quite a bit more developed, in the US even more. So that's also an interesting nuance to observe.
Probably a question for you, Gabby.
Yeah.
How was this research conducted? What does AI-moderated interviews mean exactly?
Yeah, of course. That's a great question. So actually, we've trained an AI moderator based on real interviews done by real human moderators to behave just like a human moderator would. So basically, via chat, where people can answer by video, voice, text, the AI will ask the questions following the discussion guide that we agree, but then also probing on each of the answers in different ways to each consumer, of course, and adapting itself so that we can have really as close as possible of an experience of a one-to-one personal discussion without all that moderator bias or social desirability bias. And again, if you want to know more, please come see us and I can speak in more detail.
We've still got time and we've still got questions.
Great.
Another one, probably for both of you. To which extent were you able to pinpoint what shifted consumers' attitude towards weight? For example, how big is the Oprah Winfrey effect?
Want to take that one?
Yeah, I think this is an interesting topic, and I think it deserves maybe us to bring in the social listening layer as well, because the weight management part is not coming only from the GLP-1 conversation, right? But also from the wider lens. If we look at what's fashionable, we look at luxury industries, fashion industries. So I think there is a weight management component outside of the GLP conversation, but we did not measure in numbers the attitude towards weight management on this.
I think to add to that, weight management, it's already been there for a long time. Obesity has already been a problem in the world, especially in the US, Western Europe, for a long time. So people have been looking to do something about it already for a long time. And I think GLP-1 just really starts unlocking that ease for people, so really making it easier to lose weight. And they've actually been wanting to do that already for a long time.
Yeah.
Following more traditional means, basically.
Yeah, and definitely, again, different by geography, for sure.
Exactly.
There's people fighting obesity versus people looking for aesthetics, so different motivations, and I think different approaches to the weight loss as well from that.
There's one last question, but I'm not going to ask it because I think it's a long answer. It's a great question. Mm-hmm. So whoever asked the question, how will GLP alternatives influence food and beverage companies on their innovation agenda, I suggest you go and talk to the guys on the stand, because I think that's a great question. That's a long answer potentially.
We're out of time.
And we're out of time.
Feel free to reach out.
Thank you so much.